right. Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to our first Zoom session for PPA 500, section number 2 here on Wednesday evenings. For all of you who are new to the Beach MPA program, welcome to the program. This is your first week of courses in the program, so I hope your first week is off to a good start, and I hope you enjoy all the subsequent weeks in the program as well. For those of you who are enrolled in the class who are not in the MPA program, I know we have a couple of people in the MPH program. Welcome to you as well, and I hope you enjoy the course material that we're going to cover here in PPA 500. My name is Dr. Powell, and obviously I will be your instructor for this course. I've had the Canvas site open for a while, so I hope you've had a chance to go and take a look at the Canvas site and maybe peruse the syllabus a little bit. But what I thought we would do tonight is we'll do an abbreviated session tonight because this is our first course, our first class session. And I swear, as I get older, the summers tend to get much quicker. And it seems like we are just wrapping up spring semester, and lo and behold, here we are beginning fall semester. So it certainly does roll around very, very quickly. And so I think we'll do an abbreviated session tonight. But what I do want to do tonight is a few things. Number one, introduce myself to you, let you know who I am and why I'm here teaching this course this semester. Then go through the syllabus, talk about the course, some of the course requirements, the expectations for the course, some of the topics that we'll be covering, some of the things we're trying to accomplish with this course in terms of the course learning objectives, and just familiarize everyone with the syllabus as well as with the course requirements. It's always good, I think, for us all to be on the same page on the first night of class and to clear up any questions you may have about the class here tonight, as opposed to then waiting until week 4 or 5 or 6 and then dealing with those questions. So we'll talk about the course and the course requirements. I'll take you through our Canvas site if you haven't looked at it yet, and just kind of give you a real quick tour of the Canvas site. And then in terms of our substantive information for tonight, I know most of you who are in the MPA program, you probably attended the orientation session that I believe was hosted by Dr. Butts and Dr. Zhao. But for those of you who were not able to attend the orientation, I'm going to go through some of that orientation material again. Even if you were at the orientation session, it's never bad to hear this material a second time from a second perspective. So we'll talk a bit about the MPA program, some of the requirements of the MPA program. And then I do want to introduce you tonight to the mission of the program, talk about some of the public service values that underpin the program, and then finally talk to you about NASPA accreditation and what it means to be an accredited program and some of what we call the universal required competencies that you can expect to acquire during your time in the MPA program. So that's what's on our agenda for this evening. I don't anticipate that you've done any readings or anything for tonight's class, so you didn't have to prepare any of those readings. Hopefully you looked at the syllabus, but even if you haven't looked at the syllabus yet, we're going to go through that together as a group. So that is our plan for tonight. We are a relatively full class. Usually this class runs with about 13 to 15 students. I think in this section, we have 19 to 20 folks enrolled. So pretty healthy enrollments in the MPA program this fall. I think we're starting to kind of get back to normal in terms of enrollments after the COVID pandemic. We saw obviously in the COVID pandemic a dip in enrollments, and now enrollments have gone back up. And we are one of the larger MPA programs in Southern California and actually in the entire western region of the country. So we typically do have very large enrollments. I think everything's starting to return to how it was pre-COVID. But before we jump into a discussion of the class, we're not going to go around and do introductions tonight. I want to kind of save the time and not do that. But one of the things I'm asking that you do is I have an introduction discussion board forum that I opened up on our Canvas site. And I would ask that between now and next Wednesday, if you could just go into that forum and just share a little bit about yourself, whatever you are comfortable sharing. So, who you are, maybe why you're in the program, just a few sentences about you so we can kind of start to learn about each other and get to know each other. We are only together for 8 weeks because this is a first half hybrid course. And so we will be all done by the middle of October. And so those 8 weeks are going to fly by in the blink of an eye. So before you know it, the 8 weeks will be over, PPA 500 will be over, and you can then move onward and upward if you're taking a second half hybrid course. But it is good that we start to get to know each other in the first couple of weeks of the term. As you probably know through the orientation session, the MPA program has really tried very hard to present a variety of different modalities. And we do that primarily for student flexibility. We know that many of you are working full-time jobs. Many of you have family obligations. And so school is another one of those obligations that you have to deal with on a daily basis. And we also know that some of your jobs are very demanding. And so what we've tried to do is to offer our courses in a variety of different modalities, face-to-face. So if you do enjoy face-to-face on-campus instruction, there are some courses that are offered face-to-face. There are some courses that are offered in what we call asynchronous online approach. An asynchronous online approach will not have live weekly meetings like what we do here in this class, and everything will be done kind of at your own pace throughout either 8 weeks or 16 weeks, depending upon the length of that class. And then we have these types of courses that we consider to be our hybrid synchronous courses, where we meet for 8 weeks, one night per week in Zoom in a real-time synchronous format. And then we complement our weekly Zoom sessions with asynchronous discussion board posts. And so we kind of combine both the synchronous and the asynchronous together in the 8-week version. So this is a hybrid course. It's an 8-week course, only meeting through the first half of the semester. But you can rest assured that we are an accelerated course as opposed to being a condensed course, in that you are going to be exposed to all the same information you would have had covered if you took this course in a full 16-week semester variety. It's just that we cover the information a little bit quicker. And so it's a little bit accelerated. For instance, next week, we're going to spend our time talking about the role of public administration within the context of American government. If you were taking this course over 16 weeks, you would probably spend 2 weeks working on that material. Here, we will only spend 1 week. And so we kind of accelerate everything together here in this hybrid type of an approach. So, but before I get into a lot of the details on the course, let me tell you who I am. My name is Dr. Powell again. I'm in my 24th year teaching here as full-time faculty member in the Graduate Center for Public Policy and Administration. Of those 24 years, I spent 10 years as the department chair. Thankfully, I've retired from being department chair and I've left those duties to Dr. Butts. I've also spent the past 19 years as the director of the distance learning MPA program, and I continue on in that role as well. So I've been here for quite a while, teaching at Long Beach. Before I came to Long Beach, I taught for 5 years, first at a university in Illinois called Eastern Illinois University, kind of a mid-sized state university, about 15, 20,000 enrollment. Teaching in a political science department, teaching primarily graduate public administration courses, and then some undergraduate political science courses. So I was there for 4 years. And then I moved on to Florida and taught at Florida Gulf Coast University, which was a brand new university. Pretty much when I got there, it had been open for 4 years. And we had just started an MPA program. So I was able to contribute to the start of that MPA program. And then I also was able to co-found an undergraduate program in political science. And then I came out to Cal State Long Beach from Florida. So when you add it all up, I have 29 years now, starting this fall as a full-time faculty member. So I've been at this for quite a while. This 500 course is kind of the staple of my teaching schedule. I've been teaching this course here at Long Beach pretty much since I got here 24 years ago, and have kind of marshaled the course through several different iterations. This course is different than if you knew someone who took this course 5 or 6 years ago. This version of the course is somewhat different. And that I sat down a few years ago and redesigned the course to try and root the material more in the American government environment. One of the things that we had realized after teaching this course for many years is that we have students who come from a variety of different backgrounds. And political science, while the plurality of our students come from an undergraduate political science background, the majority do not. And so we have people coming into this program from health sciences, from psychology, from business, quite a few from engineering, which you might be surprised by that, from natural sciences, really across the board, from just about any undergraduate academic major you can think of. And so one thing we realized is that a lot of our students didn't really have the grounding in American government, especially at the graduate level. So what we did is we redesigned this course and we spent a lot more time talking about American government and talking about public administration within the context of American government. Because after all, as public administrators, we are working in public organizations. Public organizations, by definition, are governmental organizations. They have coercive power. They work from a position of legal power and authority. And so it's important for us to understand the genesis of public administration and how it flowed out of our system of American government. So this version of the course is much different than how we taught it maybe 5, 6, 7 years ago. So let me go through the syllabus a little bit. And this session is being recorded. I should mention that I record all of our Wednesday night sessions, and then I will provide a link to the video probably sometime tomorrow morning, at least by noon. It will be available on our Canvas site. If for some reason you are not able to join us on a Wednesday evening, you can always go back and review the recording. Then if you have any questions, you can always reach out to me and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. Even if you're here every Wednesday night, it's sometimes useful to have that recording so you can go back and listen to it again. And if anything didn't kind of click the first time, it usually then clicks the second time once you review that recording. So as such, since we are recording these sessions, the university does provide you with some privacy assurances. And one of those privacy assurances is you are not required to turn your camera on. You are welcome to if you are so disposed, but you do not have to use your camera. Another privacy assurance that you have is that you do not have to put your full name into the Zoom session. If you'd like to put your first name or first name, last initial, however you want to do it, it's fine with me. But since we're providing the 3 sections of 500 are all online this semester, those are some privacy assurances that university policy provides to you. However, you are welcome to participate in the class at any time you would like. I have my text chat box open, and so if you would like to ask questions or if you have observations, you can put those in text chat. If you prefer using your microphone, you can always raise your hand and your microphone will be open and you can participate using your microphone. I do encourage you as we go through tonight talking about the syllabus and the course requirements that if you have any questions or need any clarifications at all, feel free to ask those questions tonight. If you have questions that emerge after tonight's class, as always, send me an email and I'm more than happy to answer any of those questions. So this is PPA 500. It's the foundations, the introductory course for the MPA program. So our goal here in this foundations course is to essentially introduce you to the field of public administration and to talk about the field of public administration within the context of American government. So what you learn in this class should then prepare you to go ahead and take your future required courses in the program. We will touch upon things like budgeting, which will help prepare you for the 555 public budgeting course. We will touch upon the management of human resources, which will help prepare you for 577. We'll spend a week talking about the development of public administration literature with an eye on organization theory and how our understanding of organizations, how that understanding has changed over the past 150 years. That will provide you a very firm foundation for then going on and taking 660 organization theory. We'll have 1 week of the course where we will talk about policy analysis. That will prepare you for your 670 policy course. And then that same week, we'll also talk about the role of public administrators in evaluating public programs. That program evaluation discussion will then prepare you to go ahead and take 696 research methods. So this is really your foundation introductory course. As an introductory course, this is not a research intensive course. So you're not going to be doing research assignments per se. There won't be research papers that you'll be doing like in some of your future courses. This is very much an introduction to the field of public administration. In terms of the syllabus, hopefully you've had a chance to take a look at it, but let me just hit some of the highlights of the syllabus. I'm not going to go through the syllabus word for word, but I do want to just highlight some of the most important aspects that will help you be successful in the course. Again, my name is Dr. Powell. You know when we are meeting, you know how to attend the meetings because you are here. We're going to use the same link for all of our Wednesday evening sessions, so that link will not change. You'll just use that same link. I think it's just easier to do that. Our meeting dates are scheduled for tonight, September 4th, September 11th, September 18th, September 25th, October 2nd, and October 9th. October 16th, we are not planning on having a live Zoom session. And instead, we're going to spend that time on October 16th, allowing you to spend the time doing your final assessment. So we're going to consider that to be our final assessment session, if you will. So you won't have a live Zoom session. You'll just spend that time working on the final assessment. My office is in the SSPA building in room 232. And so if you're new to the program, you haven't visited public administration, we are located in the hall across the courtyard from political science. And so when you come up the steps of SSPA, political science, their wing of offices are on the left-hand side, public administration's on the right-hand side. Even number offices are on the right-hand side. Those are ours. The odd number offices are on the left-hand side, and those are for political science. I work from home a lot because all the courses I am teaching this semester are online courses. And so I'm going to have my office hours online. University policy dictates that the modality of office hours should match the modality of instruction. So since all my instruction is online, then my office hours are online as well. If you have questions or you need to talk about something, contact me via email. My email's there on the syllabus, david.powell@csulb.edu. I'm very bad at voicemail. I will certainly go weeks without checking my voicemail. So if you want to contact me, do it through email. I have all my emails pushed to my iPhone, and so they come directly to me. And so you'll get a response very quickly, typically within the hour. If it's a reasonable time that you email me, you'll get a response usually within the hour. My official office hours are Tuesdays from 2 to 4 p.m. Again, they're online. So if you need to talk to me, just shoot me an email, and we can either discuss it through email, or if you need to set up a Zoom meeting, we could do that as well. So I've already kind of introduced the course to you. So it is a survey-based course. It is the introductory course into the Beach MPA program. The course is designed to introduce you to the major theories, ideas, and principles of public administration and public policy. Now, as you know, we are located in a graduate center for public policy and administration. Despite the fact we are in a graduate center for public policy and administration, the 1-degree program that we offer is the Masters of Public Administration. So we are a public administration as opposed to a public policy program. However, to understand public administration and the roles of public administrators, we by definition do need to talk about public policy. And so that's why you have a week in this class dealing with public policy. That's why later on in the program, you will have an entire core course, public policy analysis, PPA 670, that deals with public policy. But some of the primary topics that we will cover in this course: intergovernmental relations and federalism and the impact of federalism on public administration; organization theory, how we study public organizations, because at its very heart, public administration is the study of public bureaucracy. Public bureaucracy consists of public organizations. So a good deal of what we do in public administration revolves around the study of public organizations, as well as nonprofit organizations. How we manage personnel or human resources, how we manage finances and budgeting, those are all primary topics that we'll be covering in this course. We'll also talk a lot about accountability and ethics, the heightened accountability standards and expectations for being a public servant, working in the public or the nonprofit sector, where you are oftentimes dealing with public resources. That brings with it a lot more transparency and scrutiny and heightened accountability standards. And next week in class, we will spend a significant amount of time talking about the basics of American government and political institutions. This is where we will talk about the influence of separation of powers and American federalism. This is where we'll talk about the significance of being a democratic republic, combining a democracy with aspects of a Republican form of government. We'll talk about the issue of power and how we define and measure power. And so it'll be very much, if you're a political science undergraduate major, next week, a lot of that information will be information that you have covered in your undergraduate level. However, if you have not covered American government very extensively undergraduate, this week, next week, will provide you with the information you need so we can all kind of start on the same equal footing. We can all start with the same foundational assumptions. I will direct your attention to these course objectives. I'm a big believer in keeping course objectives as limited as possible, because the more course objectives you have, the easier it is to not achieve those course objectives and to have objectives conflict with each other. So we have 4 in this course. By the end of the course, you should be able to comply with the requirements of the MPA program and its policies. Now, again, that's going to be germane to those of you who are in the MPA program. Those of you who are in the MPH program, once you're done with this course, if you're not taking other MPA courses, then that's probably not going to apply very directly to you. The second course objective is to articulate the basic concepts of American government and political institutions. Number 3, to apply the major theories and themes of public policy and administration. And then number 4, to articulate the basic elements and the major subfields within the discipline of public administration. So this course provides you with a really solid footing in what is public administration and how we study phenomena in the field of public administration. As I mentioned before, this is an online synchronous course, which means that we meet on Wednesday evenings on Zoom. You have the Zoom link. That's why you're participating tonight. As I said, all these sessions will be recorded. Typically, what I will do is once I extract the video, I will then load it up to YouTube so that I can add captioning to it. And then it then gets applied to our Canvas site. So for each module, at the end of the class the next day, you'll then see a link that will pop up to the video recording for that evening session. Required textbooks. The 2 required textbooks for this course are Don Kettle's Politics of the Administrative Process and the Shafrit's Classics of Public Administration. Now, a couple of caveats here in terms of the Kettle textbook. The Kettle textbook, the most recent edition is a 9th edition, and the readings you'll see in the syllabus are all indexed to that 9th edition. However, I do know that some people like to get a copy that's maybe an 8th edition because they're a whole lot cheaper if they're an 8th instead of a 9th edition. So what I've done for you in the syllabus is I provided a link for the list of chapters in the 9th edition and a list of chapters in the 8th edition. So if you're using the 8th edition of the Kettle textbook, just take a look at the table of contents and just kind of match it up so you make sure that you're reading the correct chapters for that week. I like the Kettle textbook. It's a very straightforward, very readable textbook. And I like the way that Don puts the idea of public administration within the realm of the political environment. As we will talk about in upcoming class sessions, One of the primary difference between an MPA and an MBA is that when we study public organizations, we have to be mindful of the political environment. The environment in which we operate in the public sector, in the nonprofit sector, certainly far more political than what we see in the business sector. And so I think Don's book does a really nice job of kind of capturing that political element. Then the second textbook, The Classics of Public Administration, consists of a series of what we consider to be classical articles in the field of public administration. As such, some of those articles are older. The Woodrow Wilson article, for example, that you'll be reading is from 1887. There's a Frank Goodnow article that you'll read that I believe is from 1923. So some of those articles are a little bit dated in terms of their writing style, and so some are a little bit more difficult to get through than others. But I think it's important that as students of public administration, you have the opportunity to read these articles yourself so that you can form your own opinions and your own perspectives on this writing, as opposed to just listening to me tell you what these articles are all about. So we use the 8th edition, and all the articles that are listed in the syllabus are from the 8th edition. If you do want to get the 7th edition to save yourself some money, just make sure that that 7th edition has the articles that we will be reading. And that's why for the Shafritz readings, I've put not just the number, but I've also put the name of the author as well as the title of the article. So you can kind of do that cross-referencing between the 7th and the 8th editions. So those are our two primary textbooks. The Kettle textbook really is kind of the background material. So that kind of provides us with that background material. I don't teach from the Kettle textbook. I never teach from textbooks. I think it's a waste of time for instructors to teach from a textbook because you could just go sit down and read the textbook and then you don't have to bother coming to class. So I approach things sometimes a little bit differently than Don does in his textbook, and you'll kind of see the way that works out. You'll get information in our Wednesday sessions that's not found in the Kettle textbook. There may be information that Don gives you in the textbook that we don't cover in class. I really do believe, and it sounds a little cliche, but if I do my job correctly, you are going to learn not just from me, not just from the textbooks, but you should also be learning from each other. And those are the three main sources of learning that you will have in this course. One part of the syllabus I know everyone is very focused on, and rightly so, and I was a graduate student as well, so I understand that focus. Evaluation criteria. What types of assignments will you be doing? What are the expectations for those assignments, and how will those assignments be graded? So let's talk a bit about the course assignments. Again, we are not a research-based course. You're not going to be doing a lot of research assignments. The assignments you're going to do in this course are going to be much more straightforward, taking the information that you've learned in the course and then applying that information in a practical public administration or nonprofit administration setting. And I'll get up on my soapbox for a second. We are an MPA program. So as an MPA program, we are both a graduate level program as well as a professional program. As a graduate level program, since we're a master's level program, there are certain scholarly expectations of you in terms of the quality of your writing, in terms of your critical thinking. However, we are also a professional program. So we need to take this critical thinking and we need to take these theories and we need to place them into the service of doing the actual work of administration. So in this class, and really throughout the entire MPA program, our emphasis is on finding that nexus, that connection between theories and practice. And so the assignments in this class are all geared around finding that nexus, as opposed to having you go out there and do a lot of academic research. So let's talk through some of these assignments and let you know what they're all about and when they're due and how they're going to be evaluated. So the first assignment that you're going to be doing in this class is what's called the Initial Skills Self-Assessment. And this initial skills self-assessment is on a credit, no credit basis. It's only worth 5 points. You turn it in, you get 5 points. You don't turn it in, you don't get the 5 points. But it's not being graded for accuracy. And let me at this point share with you the initial skills self-assessment. And it's probably easier for me just to scroll down to the bottom of the syllabus. So I don't want to make you dizzy or nauseous or anything. So hold on, but let's go all the way down to the bottom. And appended here at the bottom of the syllabus is this thing called the initial skills self-assessment. This assignment is something that every student in PPA 500 will do. It is part of our assessment system of student learning outcomes. Back when I was chair, back in the Middle Ages, I put together this assessment system so that we could accurately assess what students are learning in the MPA program. I wrote an article several years ago. The title was, How do we know what they know? So how do we know what students know? And that's really what assessment is all about. So one part of our assessment system is this initial skills self-assessment that you will do upon entry into the program in PPA 500. And I would like for everyone in the course to do this, even if you're not in the MPA program, if you're in the MPH program. I think this still could be kind of useful for you to think about your skill level and your abilities when you entered your program. And then once you get to the end of your program, think about how those skill levels may have changed. But here for this initial skills self-assessment, it consists of three different parts. The first part is just a very simple Likert ordinal response scale. Ask you how much you know, how much information you have in these following areas: public budgeting and finance, decision-making, ethics, oral communication skills, organization, behavior and theory, personnel, human resource management, policy analysis, problem solving, research and statistics, teamwork, and written communication skills. You'll just ordinarily rank how much you feel you know from a low of 1, meaning you really don't know anything at all about that area, to a high of 5, meaning that you know a great deal about that topic. So it should be very quick and very easy for you to do that type of ordinal assessment. Then in part 2, we're going to ask you to expand a little bit on your experience and skills in 5 of those areas, the 5 core content areas of our MPA program: budgeting and finance, human resource management, org theory, policy analysis, and research methods. So here, just a sentence or two about what experience you have in those 5 core content areas. If you have no experience in public budgeting and finance, that's absolutely fine. You're not expected to have experience in this course, coming into this course. So you can just say, I do not have any experience with public budgets. And that's a completely acceptable answer. So just a sentence or two about your experience. And then in part 3, please discuss your reasons for pursuing the MPA degree and what specific skills you hope to acquire in the MPA program. Now, if you're in the MPH program, you can just change that up and just see, what are your reasons for taking this PPA 500 course, and what do you hope to get out of this PPA 500 course? So if you're not in the MPA program, think about it from a course basis. If you are in the MPA program, think about what you want to get out of the MPA program. So very simple, very quick initial self-assessment. This is an assessment that you are doing of your skills. So there are no right or wrong answers here. There'll be no corrections made on it. It's just an honest assessment of where you are as you enter the MPA program. Now, again, every student in 500 does this initial skills self-assessment. And then once you get to the end of the program and you get to PPA 697, you will then do a final skills self-assessment, which is essentially a redo of this initial skills self-assessment. So you get a chance to assess your skills now as you enter the MPA program, and then another opportunity to assess your skills as you are leaving the MPA program, as you finish up 697 directed research, which is your capstone, your culminating experience course in the program. Any questions on the initial skills self-assessments? I've got all of our due dates in the syllabus as we move through. I'll show you all the due dates for all these assignments. Then the next assignment is, again, a very straightforward one, and that's what we call the draft advancement to candidacy form. So if you had the opportunity to attend the orientation session, I'm sure they talked about advancing to candidacy. One of the requirements for graduate level students at the university is that you must complete an advancement to candidacy form in which you essentially map out your courses that you'll be taking as part of your program. So you lay out, here are the courses I'm taking, here is the sequencing of those courses, here are the semesters and the years in which I will be taking those courses. Now, this is just a draft advancement form. If you are in your first semester in the program, as I think almost all the MPA students are, you are not allowed to submit your formal advancement to candidacy in your first semester in the program. You cannot submit it until you've already completed 6 units. So it won't be able to do it until spring semester. If you're doing 2 courses this fall, then you'll be eligible to advance in the spring and have a cumulative GPA of 3.0. You currently don't have a GPA because you just started the program, so you are not able to formally advance. What I like to do here in 500 is have you do a draft advancement form, submit it to me through our Canvas site, and then I will review that form, provide you feedback on the courses you plan on taking, can give you some feedback in terms of your sequencing of those courses. And then next semester, when you are ready to formally advance, your advancement form should already be done. And then you can just submit that advancement form to Dr. Zhao or Dr. Butts, and they can formally then advance you to candidacy in the spring. So it's just a really good way of allowing me the opportunity to review the courses you're planning on taking to make sure that everything looks good so you'll be ready to formally advance in the spring. So let me stop the share of our syllabus for 1 second and let me share out our advancement form. I have the advancement forms up on the Canvas site. So let me just share the general advancement form with you. Now, also looking at our roster, I know that the majority of students in the class in the MPA program are in the general MPA program. That's where the vast majority of our students are. But there are some of you who are in the option in urban affairs and some of you in the option in public works. This I'm showing you now is the general advancement form. If you're in the option in urban affairs and the option in public works, those options have their own unique advancement forms. I have those on our Canvas site as well. So if you're in either one of those options, use those forms as your draft advancement to candidacy form. But because most people are in the general program, I just thought I would show the general form. So what you'll do in your draft advancement form, just your basic information up here at the top. Your midterm, for almost all of you, it's fall of 2024. Your advancement term, you cannot advance before spring of 2025, so likely it will be spring of 2025. There are requirements that you have to meet before you'll be able to officially advance a candidacy in the spring. You'll have to meet the GWAR, the Graduate Writing Assessment requirement. If you graduated from a regionally accredited university, you've probably already met the GWAR. And so if you don't get a notice from the university saying you haven't met the GWAR requirement, then that means you have met the GWAR requirement. Almost everyone's already met that. A minimum of a GPA of 3.0 and all work completed. Obviously, you don't have a GPA yet, so just leave that blank. Successful completion of 6 units. Obviously, you haven't completed any units yet, so you can just leave that blank as well. And then completion of the orientation requirement. If you attended the orientation with Dr. Butts and Dr. Zhao, you just put the date of the orientation in there. If you are unable to attend the orientation session, tonight will suffice as your orientation session. So you can just put August 28th, August 28th, 2024, and that will be the date in which you completed the orientation requirement. What I'm really interested in is in your course sequencing. And so in this next box, you have all of the core courses that are required in the MPA program. This foundations course, budgeting, HR, org theory, policy analysis, research methods, and then those 2 sections of directed research. What I would like to see is for you to tell me what semester and what year you plan on taking each one of these courses. Obviously, grades, you don't have a grade yet, so don't worry about that, but the semester and year for each one of those courses. Now, we offer all of the core courses every fall and every spring semester. We offer multiple sections of all the core courses every semester. So there's no worry about those core courses not being offered in a given semester. One thing I will warn you, though, about as you put your sequencing together is that there is a departmental policy that I'm sure was talked about at the orientation that you cannot register for 697 until you have completed all of your other core courses. 697 consists of a series of 5 case studies, one case study from each of the core areas of budgeting, HR, org theory, policy, and research methods. So therefore, if you haven't completed one of those core courses, you will not then be ready and prepared to do that case study. So all of your core courses have to be done before 697. So just make sure as you fill this form out that the semester and year in which you're taking 697 occurs after the semester and year in which you're taking your other core courses. And then this next box, you'll just list out your 5 elective courses. And you can select these elective courses either from within the MPA program, or you can use elective courses outside of the program. But if you're going to go outside the program, I would strongly recommend that you run it past Dr. Butts or Dr. Zhao first, because there are some departments on campus that are still impacted, which means that they don't accept any students from outside their own program. So you got to be careful where you're actually going to take a class at. So it's always good to have Dr. Butts and Dr. Zhao chime in on your selection of elective courses. But you'll just list those 5 elective courses and the semester and year in which you plan on taking those courses. Now, this can be a little, we have a little flexibility here because granted, if you're looking 2 years in the future, you don't know what the schedule is going to look like 2 years from now. I don't know what the schedule is going to look like. Dr. Butts puts it together. He probably doesn't know yet what that schedule is going to look like a year and a half to 2 years from now. So just take a best guess at the semester and year for those elective courses. Once you officially advance a candidacy in the spring, even after you advance a candidacy, if you end up taking a course in a different semester than you had listed on the advancement form, you don't have to do anything. Don't worry about it. The university doesn't care. They're fine if you take it in a different semester and different year. All the university will care about is that after you advance a candidacy, that you go ahead and take all the courses that you listed on your advancement form. But even then, if you decide a year from now, well, I was going to take intergovernmental relations, but I've decided instead to take employee-employer relations, that's not a problem either. If you do that, then it's a really simple program change form. Kathy Allen in the office will take care of that for you, and there's really nothing you have to worry about doing. We'll take care of all that so you won't get flagged when it's time to graduate. So just list your 5 elective courses and the semester and year in which you plan to take those courses. Then this next part really we should talk a little bit about, and that's the internship. And it was probably discussed at the orientation, but it's always good to talk a little bit more about it. In our program, there is an internship requirement for anyone who does not have at least 1 year of full-time administrative experience. If you have 1 year of full-time administrative experience, then we can waive that internship for you. So if you have that experience, just check the waiver box, and then on the line, just say where you were employed, where you did your experience at, and the internship. Then when you officially advance in the spring, you won't have to worry about doing an internship. However, if you lack the 1 year of full-time administrative experience, then you'll have to register for PPA 585, which is the internship course. What you'll need to do is if you are sorry, my printer for some reason is printing. I apologize for that. If you're hearing that, let me try and stop it. All right, I think I stopped it. For your internship course, if you don't have 1 year full-time experience, you'll have to do the internship. If you don't have 1 year full-time experience, I would strongly recommend that you talk to Dr. Butts or talk to Dr. Zhao and ask them about it, because they will be able to kind of point you in the right direction in terms of where you can go for an internship. We have a lot of internship relationships with a lot of different organizations in Southern California. One that I'll point out to you that maybe Dr. Butts already mentioned the orientation is the local government partnership. that he has formed with the city of La Palma. And so the city of La Palma is very welcoming of students for internships. And so it's a very quick and easy process to get an internship through that local government partnership program. And I know that Dr. Butts is always working to add more cities to that partnership. So talk to Dr. Butts or Dr. Zhao if you don't have at least 1 year of full-time administrative experience. So, but just for our draft form, if you have that experience, check the waiver box where you're employed. If you don't have that experience, just check PPA 585 box. And then sometime later this semester, probably be a good idea to email Dr. Butts or Dr. Zhao, and then they can help work on getting an internship for you in the very near future. So again, this is the draft advancement form. If you are in the option in urban affairs, for instance, your form is going to look a little bit different. That you'll have one additional required course, which is PPA 610 Seminar in Urban Affairs, and then you'll have one fewer elective. Instead of 5 electives, you'll only have 4 electives. If you're in the option in Public Works, you'll have one additional core course, which is PPA 554 Public Works Management, and then again, one fewer elective course, so only 4 instead of 5 elective courses. If you are not in the MPA program, if you're in the MPH program or some other program, you do not have to do this draft advancement form. So don't worry about doing the draft advancement form. You're always going to already probably advance a candidacy or will be advanced a candidacy in your department for your program. So if you're not in the MPA program, just send me an email and just say, remind me, say I'm in the MPH program and I'd like to waive doing the draft advancement assignment, and I will waive it for you. So this is only for people who are in the MPA program. And again, this is a draft. This is not official, just gives me the opportunity to review your courses and provide you with feedback. Questions on the draft advancement to candidacy form?
Dr. Powell, I do have a question, but it's not about the advanced candidacy form. It's about the pre-req that Dr. Zhao advised me that I will need to take for, I think it's microecon.
Right.
Which course is that a requirement for? Is it for government budgeting and finance?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. And let's talk about those prerequisites briefly. It's a good time to do it. So yes, if you do not have an undergraduate microeconomics course on your transcript, then yes, you have to fulfill a microeconomics requirement before you will be given a permit to register for 555 government budgeting and finance. So the way in which you can meet that requirement is, again, if you have an undergraduate microeconomic course on your transcript, then you meet the requirement and you can then register for 555. Or you could take a microeconomics course at the undergraduate level. It will not count towards your MPA degree, but you could do that. Or you could take a course called PPA 518, and that's Microeconomics for Public Administrators. PPA 518 will then satisfy that microeconomics requirement to then get you into the public budgeting and finance course. And it also can then double count as an elective because it is an elective in the MPA program. So if you want to keep your requirements within the 39 units, you would just apply that PPA 518 as one of your electives. So that is the prerequisite for budgeting and finance. Then for 696 research methods, the prerequisite to get a permit for that course is an undergraduate statistics course. So if you have an undergraduate stats course, which a lot of people do, then that will suffice to get you into the research methods. If you don't have an undergraduate statistics course, then you can take PPA 517, which is called Analytical Skills Development for Public Administration. That can serve as an elective and will also then get you into the 696 research methods course. So that I'm glad you mentioned that. So again, you're going to need a microeconomics, probably 518 to get into public budgeting and finance, and then statistics, which is 517 to then get into 696 research methods. But thank you for mentioning that. Yeah, it's those are the only prerequisites we really have in the program.
Thank you so much.
Sure. Yeah, that's a great question. I'm glad you asked it. And Angela is asking in text, yeah, where can we find the advanced candidacy forms? I have them on our Canvas site. And so I think it's under the first module or module one. I have the advancement form for general. I have the advancement form for urban affairs and the advancement form for public work. So you can just download them directly off of our Canvas site. All right, let me stop that share and let me jump back into our syllabus. I know it's a little clunky going back and forth, but all right, we are back in the syllabus. So 5 points for the initial skills self-assessment, 5 points for the draft advancement form. Then you have two assessments. You have a midterm assessment and a final assessment. Now, I refer to these as assessments on purpose. They are not examinations, and that these are assignments that you will not be doing in a timed environment in one of our class sessions. You will be able to do these at your leisure. What I will do is 2 weeks before the due date for each of those assessments, I will make those assessments available on our Canvas site. You can then download the documents, and it's just, it's just a Word file, I believe it's in, and then just work on it at your leisure. You'll have 2 weeks to complete it. You will be able to use everything at your disposal. So you can use textbooks, you can use the notes you've taken during our Wednesday evening sessions, you can use the PowerPoint slides that are provided for you. You can use all the information at your disposal to complete the midterm and the final assessment. These assessments consist of 5 scenarios each. And so what I will do and what I have done, I have them ready, I just haven't made them available yet, but I prepare 5 different scenarios that reflect a real life public administration situation. And then they're very brief. I don't want to inundate you with a lot of superfluous information. So they're usually about a paragraph or two in terms of the scenario. And then each of those scenarios will have 2 questions attached to them. Those questions will then require you to take the information from the class and then apply it appropriately to fit that given scenario. Now, again, you're just using the information that you've acquired in the class, so you don't have to go out and do any external research. So don't worry about doing that. Just use the information that you have been provided in the class to answer those questions. So there are 5 scenarios, 2 questions related to each scenario. So a grand total of 10 questions on each, the midterm as well as the final assessment. Each question worth 10 points. So the midterm assessment's worth 100 points and the final assessment is worth 100 points. Now, in answering these questions, I am a very big believer in parsimony. We are a public administration program after all. And so we try and say as much as we can with the fewest words and phrases that we can possibly use. In my undergraduate, I was not only a political science major, I was also a history major. And so I did a lot of writing at the undergraduate level. Then I got to graduate school and started doing some work in public administration. And I learned very quickly what parsimony meant. First paper I submitted in grad school was about 80 pages. I was so proud of it. I took it out and had it bound at Kinko's uptown and brought it in, gave it to the instructor because, this was back in the Stone Ages. And so we didn't do things electronically. Gave him my big bound 80-page paper, so proud of it. And I got it back and he had bled all over it. There's just red pen marks everywhere. And he essentially said, this is not how we write in public administration. Said, are you a historian? That's how you write in history. But you don't write that way in public administration. And that's why I learned the really hard lesson about parsimony, being as concise, being as specific, and as to the point as possible. So in terms of your answers on the assessment, be parsimonious. Certainly 1 to 2 paragraph answers for each of the questions will certainly suffice. I don't think you have to write a thesis or dissertation for them, just 1 or 2 paragraphs, and it will certainly get the job done. There are no right or wrong answers on the assessments. The assessments are graded based upon your ability to justify your answers. So what you are looking to do is you are looking to apply the appropriate information appropriately to this given scenario. And I tell all of my classes I have a favorite answer and I have a favorite question. My favorite answer is going to drive you crazy because my favorite answer is it depends. It depends upon the situation. So much of what we do in public administration is contextual. It depends upon the situation in which we find ourselves. So we're not looking for you to find the best answer to this scenario. We're looking for you to find the most appropriate answer, the answer that works in this scenario. Then my favorite question is, so what? Again, going back to this whole idea of being a graduate and professional program, yes, we learn a lot of theories. Yes, we go through public administration literature. However, we always ask the question, we've learned these theories, well, so what? How do they help us? How can we apply those theories to help solve a problem or address an issue in the public sector? And so you'll see me ask this question a lot. We'll talk about theories, and I'll say, well, so what? How does that help you? How does that help your organization? How does that help government? And so I always like to ask that kind of so what type of question. But again, no right or wrong answers on the assessments. Be as concise and parsimonious as possible. And then I will make these assessments available at least 2 weeks before their due date. If I'm not mistaken, my memory's getting a little foggy in my old age, but I think the midterm assessment is due on the 25th, which means that I will make it available by the 11th. And then if the final assessment's due on the 16th, I'll make it available by October 2nd. And so you can work on these at your leisure. I don't like using timed examinations at the graduate level, especially in an MPA program, because I can't really think of a situation where you would be in your organization and have to do an examination. It's just, unless you're, taking an exam to promote to a different job, chances are you're not going to be doing that. You're going to have time to reflect on this information, collect information, and then apply information appropriately. And so that's why we do assessments as opposed to examinations. Then the final set of assignments are these things called Canvas essays. And I will admit, I kind of use the terms interchangeably, Canvas essay and discussion board. Whenever you see discussion board, it's synonymous with the Canvas essay. Discussion board is just kind of a throwback to when we used to use beach board here at the university. Now we fully transitioned to Canvas. And so what used to be the discussion board essays have now become the Canvas essays, but you can't teach an old dog new tricks. And so sometimes I still refer to them as discussion board essays. But you'll have 5 of those that are graded. Your first one, the introduction, is not graded. It's just to afford you the opportunity to say, hey, this is me, I'm here, this is who I am, so we can learn a little bit more about each other, but that's not graded. But then the next 5 will be graded. And let me show you what those look like. I have all of the prompts here on our syllabus, and of course I have them all in the discussion board area of our Canvas site. Let me just scroll down and make you dizzy again. And here we go. Here are the Canvas essays, the discussion board assignments for the course. The first one that you'll be doing that is graded. This one is not due next week, but it'll be due the week after that. Please respond to the following question. Your response should be well written and thoughtful. Most responses are 3 or 4 paragraphs. I'll add to that maybe 2, 3, or 4 paragraphs. And so again, very concise, very parsimonious. In Federalist Paper number 10, James Madison cautioned us against the negative effects of factions. Do you believe that America, should be American, America is more factionalized and divided than in the past? Provide examples to support your position. What can be done to control the effects of factions more effectively? And then respond to 2 of your classmates. We will read 3 Federalist papers. As you know, there are 85 Federalist papers. We're only reading 3 of them because we are not a political science course. But they really provide us with some insight into why we have the type of democratic republic we have, and then how the fact that we have a democratic republic impacts the work of public administrators. So the 3 Federalist papers that we will be reading, of those, one of those is number 10. And number 10 is by James Madison. And in Federalist Paper number 10, he talks about how in a democracy, by definition, you are going to have different groups that want different things. And those different groups that want different things are going to come into conflict with each other. And he talks about how we can better control that conflict that naturally occurs in a democracy. We as public administrators operate within this environment of conflict. We have interest groups all the time. They're placing pressure upon us. One interest group places pressure for one issue, another interest group countervailing pressure for another, usually diametrically opposed type of a position. So you'll respond to that initial prompt, 2, 3, 4 paragraphs, and then you will also respond to 2 of your classmates' postings. Your responses to your classmates' posting can obviously be a lot shorter. So we're looking at maybe a paragraph, 2 at the most, but a very short but professional, courteous, and supportive response to 2 of your classmates. The way in which I will grade these Canvas essays: 20 points for your initial response to my prompt, and then 5 points for each of your responses to those 2 classmates, for a total of 30 points. But do make sure to respond to 2 of your classmates, because each one of those responses is worth 5 points. And so if you don't do them, you're automatically down to 20 out of 30 points. So do make sure you do those responses. And just quickly go through some of the other ones to foreshadow them for you. Discussion board number 2, Canvas essay number 2. Select 3 principles in the American Society for Public Administration's Code of Conduct that would be most challenging for you and your organization. Explain why these principles would be challenging for you and your organization. In our week where we talk about accountability and ethics, I will introduce you to the ASPA Code of Conduct. Consists of 8 different principles. What I want you to do here is select 3 of those 8 that you think would be challenging to you and or your organization. And then, as always, respond to 2 of your classmates. Discussion board number 3, we really start to dig into the differences between public and private sector organizations. There is an article, it's number 36 in the classics text that you will be reading, by Graham Allison. Graham Allison presents to us this question of public and private management, or public and private sectors, are they fundamentally alike in all unimportant respects? And so what he does is he shows us some of the similarities and then some of the differences between public and private sector organizations. So, and we'll talk about that article in the future class, but considering Allison's argument regarding these similarities and differences between the sectors, using your organization as an example, or an organization that you are interested in. Now, the caveat here is, I know not everyone is currently working in an organization, and even folks who are working in an organization, you may not feel comfortable discussing your organization in a discussion board forum. I certainly understand that. And so you are not required to talk about your own organization unless you're comfortable doing it. But either your organization or an organization you are familiar with, and then compare that organization 2 ways in which it's similar to a private organization, 2 ways in which it is different from a private organization. If you're working in a nonprofit organization that you want to talk about, again, 2 ways that's similar to the private sector, 2 ways that is different from the private sector. If you happen to be working in the private sector, that is absolutely fine. We have several people in the program who are currently working in the private sector. You would just compare the private sector organization to a public organization, 2 similarities and 2 differences. And then, as always, respond to 2 of your classmates. In number 4, we really get into the issue of the field of public administration. And in this course, I think it's really important as the introductory course into an MPA program, that if we're really going to understand the field of public administration, we really have to understand whether or not public administration is really an academic discipline. And in a future class session, we will talk about academic disciplines like history and psychology and philosophy. And we'll talk about the characteristics that make something an academic discipline. And then we'll ask the question, does public administration meet those requirements? Does it meet the requirements of being its own academic discipline? Or is public administration just a subfield of a larger discipline such as political science? When I got my PhD, it was kind of one of those East Coast classically oriented types of PhD programs. So in that program, public administration was seen as a subfield within political science. My degree is actually in political science. 3 of our 6 faculty members have PhDs in political science. I do, Dr. Baber, and Dr. Butts. And so always being viewed as a subfield within political science. I had 4 comprehensive exam areas in my PhD. Public administration was just one of them. I had another one in Congress, another one in presidency, and another one in state and urban government. And so when I was at Eastern Illinois, I taught courses in all those fields. I taught public administration courses. I taught a seminar in Congress. Taught a seminar in the presidency, and I also taught state and local government because it was just seen as one subfield within political science. So what I want you to do here in discussion board 4 is to take a position as to whether or not you believe public administration is its own academic discipline, and then explain to me why it is an academic discipline or why you believe it is not an academic discipline. And then, as always, respond to 2 of your classmates. Then discussion board 5, we will get into public policy and decision making. In a future course, kind of near the end of our time together, we will talk about the different models of decision making. I'll introduce you to at least 4 different models of decision making. Using those models of decision making that we cover in class, select one public policy that you are familiar with and discuss which decision making model was used in the development of that policy. And then, are there other decision-making models that you think could better characterize the policy process? And then, as always, respond to 2 of your classmates. So those are your Canvas essays, your discussion board posts, the 5 of them that are graded that you will be doing throughout our course. Let me scroll back up again. Getting a little clunky. There we go. So when you add it all up, 5 points for your initial skill self-assessment, 5 points for your draft advancement form. And again, if you're not in the MPA program, send me the email and then we will waive that assignment for you. 100 points for the midterm, 100 points for the final, and then 30 points for each of the Canvas essays. There are 5 of them for a total of 150. You add it all up and we have a total of 360 points for our 8 weeks together. The grading scale from the university is listed there on the syllabus for you as well. I always bemoan the fact that we do not have pluses and minuses here at Cal State Long Beach. I've been here long enough to see 3 separate attempts at trying to institute a plus-minus system. Every time it gets approved by the faculty by an overwhelming majority, like 80%, and then it gets voted down by the students by an overwhelming majority. There are a lot more students than there are faculty, so each of the 3 times it has failed. So we still do not have pluses and minuses. At the graduate level, I think it would be great if we have pluses and minuses because it does allow us to make those distinctions between someone who scores a 98 at the end of the semester and someone scores a 90. As it currently is, both those individuals get A's. We have a lot of grade compression at the graduate level because the vast majority of the grades are going to be in the A and the B range. There are now every now and then some C's thrown in there, but for the most part A's and B's, and so you've got a lot of grade crunch that goes on. But it is what it is. We don't have pluses and minuses. However, I am typically a pretty nice guy, or I try to be, and so I have a 1 percentage point flexibility rule. If you turn everything in on time, and you give what I like to refer to as the old graduate school try, you will get that 1 percentage point boost. So if you come in at 89%, you've turned everything in, on time, you will then get the boost up to 90 and will then get the A. All right. I also have some grading rubrics. I'll let you look at those on your own, but I'm a big believer in rubrics. I will never take points away from you on an assignment without telling you why I deducted those points. That was always my biggest pet peeve when I was in graduate school. I absolutely hated that. I would get assignments back from an instructor and it would just be nothing written at all in the assignment. And at the last page, it would say A minus. Why? Why is it an A minus? What could I have done better? And so I will always tell you if there are points deducted, I will annotate your assignments and I'll put in there exactly why those points were deducted. So you'll always know how to improve. I really look at these assignments more from a formative as compared to a summative perspective. I really think you should get the feedback that can help you improve in the future. So now I'll get off my soapbox again. Let's talk about our course schedule and what we're going to cover and what weeks we're going to cover that material. Obviously, we are tonight covering the syllabus, the course requirements. I will give you an introduction again to the MPA program, and then a really quick discussion of the mission and the public sector values that underpin our MPA program. Then next week on September 4th, I hope I have all my dates correct, we will talk American democracy. We will talk about the basic underlying principles of our system of government, separation of powers, federalism, American political institutions. We will take a look at those founding documents, such as the Articles of Confederation and the Constitution. I have links to the Articles of Confederation, links to the Constitution, as well as links to Federalist Papers 10, 39, and 51. We're not really going to talk a lot about 51, but we will focus on Federalist Papers 10 and 39. 10 is the one that will give you the basis for doing your first graded Canvas essay. And 39 is my favorite Federalist paper because I think it provides us with a really good justification for why we have the democratic republic that the framers created. What we will do next week is in the first half of class, we will cover this American government information. Then we'll take a break, and we won't do a break tonight, but every future class session, I will give you a break because I think 2 hours and 45 minutes is kind of a long time to go straight through. So we will always do a break. And then after our break next week, we will spend time looking at the Constitution. We will go through the Constitution and highlight what the Constitution means for our work as public administrators. I do that here in the 500 course because that's really the only opportunity you are going to have to review the Constitution throughout your entire time in the MPA program. We as public administrators, we enjoy a protection known as good faith immunity. You're probably familiar with this, that if you are operating within good faith, within the parameters of your position, and you are endeavoring not to violate the constitutional rights of people you come into contact with, then you are immune from prosecution. It's no longer sovereign immunity. In the past, there was sovereign immunity. That meant you worked for government, the government was sovereign, therefore the government was immune, you were immune. We don't have that anymore. We have to know the constitutional rights of people we are dealing with and then endeavor not to violate those constitutional rights. There actually was a very important Supreme Court case that was just decided this term back in June, known as Gonzalez versus Trevino. And we'll talk about it a little bit later on in our semester together. But Gonzalez versus Trevino was a direct challenge to the idea of qualified good faith immunity. And I'll kind of tell you how that all played out in a future class session. But I think it's really important that we understand what those rights are in the Constitution that we must protect on behalf of citizens who we deal with. So second half of class, we'll be going through the Constitution. Then I'm asking you to please post your introduction then by next week, just so we can get to know everyone. Week number 3, we will talk about accountability and ethics. We'll talk about the basis of accountability. We'll talk about different types of accountability. I will introduce you to this ASPA Code of Ethics. The readings for that week, you have a couple of chapters out of the Kettle textbook, and then an article from the classics text by Bennington and Moore looking at public value and making an argument that public sector managers have a requirement to add public value anytime they get involved in the production and or provision of a good or a service. Then after that, your initial skill self-assessment is due, Canvas essay number 1. Then we'll move into week 4, September 18th. We are very fortunate again this semester to have our disciplinary librarian, Kelly Janicek, coming in to join us on September 18th. Kelly Janicek is our librarian for public administration. She's also a librarian for political science and several other disciplines. But she is kind of our resident expert in terms of doing research in public administration. Now, you won't be using a lot of these tools in this class because we're not a research-oriented course, but you will be using these tools throughout your time in the MPA program. So in our first half of class, we'll welcome Kelly Janicek in. She'll tell you about doing public administration research. show you some different databases, what you can get from PAIS, what you can get from JSTOR, some search types of tips and tricks, and refresh your memory on things like Boolean searches and do all that for you. And then she'll also give you a brief introduction to APA style manual. Here in the MPA program, the style manual we use is APA 7th. So if you haven't used APA 7th before, this will be a really good introduction to APA for you. If you have used it before, this will hopefully be a really nice refresher for you as well. Then the second half of class at night, we'll talk scope of government. We'll talk about the size and scope of government and public administration. We'll talk about these similarities and differences between public and private organizations. You've got the chapter in Kettle, and then you have this Graham Allison article, number 36 in the classics text that I had referenced previously. Then you have Canvas essay number 2 due and your draft advancement form if you are in the MPA program. Week 5, administrative structure and theory. We'll talk about what is public administration. We'll have this discussion about public administration as an academic discipline. And then we'll talk about how the public administration literature has evolved over the past 150 years. Your readings, you've got some chapters out of Kettle, and then you have several chapters, several articles out of the Shaffer's text, out of the classics text. The first one is by Woodrow Wilson, The Study of Administration. This is kind of where the field of public administration began back in 1887. And we'll add some qualifying comments about Woodrow Wilson as well. Max Weber's Bureaucracy, Mary Parker Follett's The Giving of Orders. And then we have another article that I provided for you on our Canvas site, Grappling with the Long-Term Consequences of Slavery, critical examination of Woodrow Wilson's efforts to legitimate racial segregation. This is an article that I think is very important that we understand that Woodrow Wilson has a tarnished reputation, especially the more we know about Woodrow Wilson, the more we understand just how dangerous his views of the bureaucracy really were. So this is one of those situations where Woodrow Wilson is oftentimes credited as being the grandfather of the study of public administration, but we also have to acknowledge some of the major flaws in Wilson's ideology. So much so that a lot of schools have now removed the Woodrow Wilson name from their buildings. One of the most high-profile examples is Princeton University. They have their School of Public and International Affairs, one of the best public affairs schools that you'll find anywhere in the country. Was for many years housed within the Woodrow Wilson building in the Wilson Hall. That building is no longer called Woodrow Wilson, and we'll talk about some reasons why that is the case. Then also, time permitting that week, we'll talk about the policy process. I'll introduce you to those models of decision-making, and we'll talk about effectiveness in public administration. Because after all, our whole goal in public administration is to make our organizations more effective. But we will learn that there are multiple ways for defining effectiveness. And I'll introduce you to all those different models of effectiveness. Then you have your readings for that week, Canvas essay number 3, and then your midterm assessment is due. Then in week 6, we'll get into administrative reform and civil service. We'll talk about how we reform civil service, the eras of public employment, the influence of public sector employee unions, and then how we manage our personnel as one of the discrete functions of public administration. And then you can see your readings. Then the next week, week 7, we'll get into the management of fiscal resources, and your readings there, and then wrap it up with a very brief discussion of how we measure performance in public administration. Your Canvas essay number 5 would then be due, and then on October 16th, your final assessment is due. We'll reserve that time on October 16th for you to finish up your final assessment. There are your due dates. I kind of like to provide you with one-stop shopping for all the due dates. I also have the due dates on our Canvas site as well, so you can kind of cross-reference them and hopefully they match up. The initial skills self-assessment due on the 11th, draft advancement to candidacy form for those in the MPA program due on the 18th, midterm assessment due on September 25th, and then the final assessment due on October 16th. We will have 7 of these Zoom sessions, including tonight's session, so 6 more after tonight. And then the due dates for all of your Canvas essays, introduction on September 4th, ungraded, and then your 5 graded Canvas essay due dates. I know we're spending a lot of time going through the syllabus in the class, but I think it's really important on the first night that we just all know exactly what the course is about and give you the opportunity to ask any questions you may have about any aspect of the course. But just to wrap all this up, policy on late assignments, I have a 10% penalty for every 24-hour period that an assignment is late. I do understand that life intervenes and there can be extenuating circumstances. If that is the situation, I just ask that you reach out to me in advance and we can probably make some provisions to help avoid that 10% penalty. All assignments are delivered electronically. I have drop boxes set up in our Canvas site for all the assignments. And then for your discussion board post, you will just post directly into the relevant discussion forum. Policy on withdrawals. I do not do administrative withdrawals. So if for some reason you decide you don't like me or you don't like the class and you want to drop the class, be sure to go through the official withdrawal process. If you don't go through the official withdrawal process, we get to the end of the semester. If I don't have a basis to grade you, then I would have to give a WU. A WU stands for an unauthorized withdrawal. Why it's WU and not UW for unauthorized withdrawal, you're going to have to ask the university that. I haven't been able to figure that out in 24 years, but that's what it is. You want to avoid having a WU on your transcript because that counts the same as an F for GPA calculation purposes. And in my 10 years as department chair, I've come to find out it's very, very difficult to get WUs off of your transcript. It takes really committee after committee and signature after signature, and sometimes even that doesn't work. So just avoid that altogether. If you have to withdraw, just go ahead and go through the official process. Incompletes, I usually do not grant incompletes. And the reason for that is that they get to be really, really, really messy. And I'll add one more really to that. What happens is if you take an incomplete, then that gives you 1 calendar year to complete the course requirements and remove that incomplete. Life happens, things intervene, extenuating circumstances occur, that year passes, the student doesn't get the work done, that grade of incomplete then flips to what accounts as an F, and then it's kind of carved in stone. So incompletes are extremely rare. However, if you have some really, really extraordinary circumstances, we can talk about it. You have to have 2/3 of the coursework done in order to qualify normally for an incomplete. Students with disabilities, reach out to BMAC, the Bob Murphy Center on campus, and BMAC will then contact me with the reasonable accommodations letter, and I will accept those accommodations. I've never rejected an accommodation in 29 years of teaching, and I don't intend to start now. Attendance policy, it's completely up to you whether or not you're here on the Wednesday night sessions. You're all professionals, and so you can make that decision on your own. Just to know that we will cover different information on Wednesdays in our live sessions than will be covered in the textbook. Also, you'll notice that my PowerPoint slides are kind of bare bones skeleton slides. I do that intentionally because we fill in all the blanks with what we discuss in our Wednesday evening sessions. Changes to the syllabus, I don't anticipate many changes. The only change we might need is if we are running long on information, we may have to push a topic from one night to another, but that's pretty much the only change that we'll ever need to make to the syllabus. And I'll just direct your attention at the very end here to the use of generative AI. This is obviously a new addition to the syllabus. The university is still grappling with artificial intelligence, kind of like the way the rest of the world is also grappling with it. And it's kind of left up to instructors how they want to deal with AI. And our department has left it up to individual instructors as well. You should know that there are some instructors in our department who say absolutely no artificial intelligence can be used under any circumstances in relationship to the course. I'm not that extreme. I will allow you to use AI for things such as brainstorming. So if you want to brainstorm an issue that you want to use as the topic for a discussion board posts, I think AI can be very useful for that type of brainstorming exercise. However, generative AI may not be used to impersonate you in classroom context, may not be used for discussion board responses, may not be used for drafting of writing assignments, may not be used for writing entire sentences, paragraphs, or papers to complete class assignments. You can't use it to supplant your own work. And I think that's pretty commonsensical, but just to make sure it's in the syllabus. So that's for our policy on the use of generative AI. Okay, wow, it's almost 5:30, but that is a syllabus. That is the course. Any questions on the course on the syllabus? Let me quickly share with you, if you are new to Long Beach, if you are new to using Canvas, let me share with you what our Canvas page looks like. And I'm going to have to share my screen with you and do it that way. So hopefully I am still logged in. We will find out. Move some stuff around. Okay. Hopefully you are able to see the Canvas site for PPA 500 section 2. It's that nice pink purple type color because I have it in student view, so it closely approximates what you will see when you log in. Let me minimize the camera shot. Okay, there we go. So when you go onto the site, you've probably already looked around here before, but I have an announcement welcoming you to the class. Also, the little library tutorial there. That's not all that important right now because Kelly Janis is actually going to come into our September 18th course and walk you through all of this. And so that's usually there for those semesters when she's not able to come in, but we are lucky to have her coming in this semester. Link for the syllabus is there. And then where you'll find most of your information will be here in the modules. And so there's a syllabus again. It keeps coming back. Here's module number 1. And so our slides are here. To post your introduction that is ungraded, just click on introduction. We'll take you into the discussion forum. You can go ahead. You can see people have already started posting and just hit reply. And then you can post your introduction. Moving along to week number 2. Here are the slides for American government. Here's a link to the Articles of Confederation, to the Constitution. This is a link to all of the Federalist Papers, all 85 Federalist Papers, if you are so disposed to go and read all of them. The ones we are going to really focus on are going to be Federalist Paper 10 and Federalist Paper number 39. I'll talk next week a little bit about another set of papers called the Anti-Federalist Papers. I have not linked them here because I doubt you have the time or the inclination to go through those. If anyone wants a link to the Anti-Federalist Papers, I can always provide that at a later date. Then here's your Canvas essay number 1. You'll complete it the same exact way that you completed your introduction. There's where you will submit your initial skills self-assessment. Okay, let's keep on going here. I see there's a question in text. I received an email about textbook access for a flat rate. Yeah, there is what they call D1A or something like that. It's digital, day one digital access. Some courses are enrolled in day one digital access. I don't believe that ours is, because usually when it's enrolled in digital access, there'll be like a little welcome message at the top of the Canvas site. So I don't think we're enrolled in that. But that program is something that if the course is enrolled in it, then you can get automatic digital access to the textbooks for the course. You are opted in automatically, and then the university charges your account for the cost of those digital materials. And if you want to opt out of it, there's a deadline by which you have to opt out. If you don't opt out, then the charge then applies to your student account. But I don't think in this course we are enrolled in that this semester. I don't believe so.
Dr. Powell, I think we are because I received the required text, both texts.
Okay. That's strange. They usually give us a little notification up here about it, which I don't see. So maybe they've stopped doing that now, but yeah, that's probably what it is for. And so you need to make sure that if you want to opt out of it, they should tell you in the email the date at which you have to opt out. Because if you don't opt out, then they'll just automatically charge your account. And so, yeah, if you like having digital materials, absolutely, you can have day one access to those. If you'd rather have printed copies, you want to buy those on your own, then you'll just opt out of that program. And then you'll see we have all the rest of our modules here. I won't take you through all of them, but it's kind of the same type of thing. We've got the drop boxes here for each one of the assignments. Here is that article I was telling you about for Woodrow Wilson. It's right there. So you can just download it directly from there. Copyright's all secured on it. And then these are each one of our subsequent modules. Thank you, Jocelyn. Jocelyn says the date to opt out is September 9th. So you've got a couple of weeks, well, a little bit less, about a week and a half to opt out if you would like to. Yeah, the university bookstore used to tell me whenever we were opted into the program. This semester they didn't tell me, so apparently we're in, and they did not tell me that we were in. So it's a good program. It's very useful if you want to get your materials right away. Another way you can go and do your discussions if you like, you can just go into discussions and you can click on them. It'll take you the same place that those links I have in the modules will take you as well. So all the same type of thing. So that's kind of our Canvas site. All the materials, all the resources you need in order to be successful are provided for you. I then have also included for you on the right side, you've got your reminders in terms of your to-dos with your due dates for everything. So those are the assignments and all the due dates for those assignments as well. So kind of, again, give you as many different ways in which you can be reminded about the assignments that we have in the course. I do try and keep the assignments as truncated as possible, just because I know we only have 8 weeks together. And so I think there's only so much you can do in 8 weeks in terms of the readings. And so I try and make the readings and trying to make the assignments as doable as possible. Okay, I know it is 5:30, but I also promised I was going to let you out early. So normally we would take a break, but let me just go ahead and finish up what we're going to cover tonight so we can get you out of here hopefully by about 6 o'clock tonight. So I know most of you were able to attend the orientation session. And for those of you who are not, I'm just going to go through some of the highlights of that information in terms of the basic tenets and the basic policies of the MPA program. So if you're not in the MPA program, you can certainly zone out on this if you would like, or in fact, the rest of what we're going to do tonight will be all MPA program related. And so if you're not in the MPA program and you want to make it a really early night, you are welcome. You can sign off if you would like, but you're also welcome to stay around and learn about the MPA program if you would like to. So I don't know all the details that Dr. Butts and Dr. Zhao went into with the orientation because I don't attend the orientation anymore, but I do like to kind of give you a little introduction to the faculty members that you'll be taking classes from in the program and a little bit about what it means to be a NASPA accredited MPA program. So we are NASPA accredited. Our last accreditation visit was in 2023, and we got a full 7-year reaccreditation, as we always get. We've been continuously accredited by NASPA, which is the Network of Schools of Public Policy, Administration, and Affairs. I always get their name mixed up because it's a mouthful, but we've been accredited through NASPA since probably the mid 1980s, I believe. I certainly wasn't here in the mid 1980s, but I think it was like 1987 or so. So we are one of the first programs that received NASPA accreditation, and we have held that NASPA accreditation ever since. The idea of NASPA accreditation is important because if you are a NASPA accredited MPA program, it means that you basically have the seal of approval from NASPA that you meet all of the standards that NASPA expects. And I'm sure if you want to hear Dr. Butts complain a little bit, you can schedule an appointment and sit down with him, and he'll be happy to tell you all about his first time through the NASPA accreditation process. It is quite the process. It's very extensive, very, very difficult, but we've been through it every 7 years. I took us through it 3 times. He's now taking us through it for his first time. So always a successful accreditation. One of the requirements of NASPA is that you need to have at least 5 nucleus full-time faculty members devoted to the MPA program. We currently have 6, and we have 6 because one of our faculty members retired 2 years ago, Dr. Moore, and so now we're down to 6, but we have Dr. Butts, who's our department chair, who you've met, Dr. Zhao, who's our graduate advisor, who I believe you've also met, There's me. I run the DLMPA program. Dr. Baber, he teaches primarily organization theory. He is on the Faculty Early Retirement Program, otherwise known lovingly as FERP here at Long Beach. That means that he only teaches part-time. So he teaches 2 courses in the fall and 2 courses in the spring. So he has a reduced teaching load. I think he has 3 more years left on the FERP program, so you may or may not run into him in future courses. Dr. Martin, he teaches primarily urban affairs and human resource management. He also teaches a race and inequality elective course. Oftentimes he'll teach that in the winter session. People really, really enjoy that course. He's another full-time faculty member. And then Dr. Melissa Matthews. She teaches primarily nonprofit management as well as policy analysis. So those are our 6 core faculty members. We then have a very strong cadre of part-time adjuncts as well. And we have some adjuncts who have been teaching in the program for a very, very long time, teaching courses like leadership, teaching courses like our emergency course, teaching courses in analytical skills development, microeconomics, public finance. Most of them have years and years of experience in the public sector. Many of them, like Professor Dominguez, who teaches organization theory, has been a city manager for about 3 decades now. And so they bring a lot of good experience into the classroom. You're familiar with the requirements of the MPA program. We have core courses, this course, budgeting, HR, org theory, policy, and research methods. And then you'll have the 2 sections of 697. 697 is your capstone. It's your culminating experience. In 697, you will complete 5 case studies, 5 capstone case studies, and then you will also complete a final skills self-assessment, as we had discussed earlier. To round out your 39 units required for the MPA degree, you will then also take 5 electives, and we have talked about that before. If you want to take them outside the department, please do reach out to Dr. Butts and or Dr. Zhao. Those electives, as we said, must be spelled out there, specified on your advancement to candidacy form. If you have taken MPA courses in another program and you would like to transfer those courses into the Beach MPA program, you can transfer in up to 9 credit hours. So that's really the equivalent of 3 courses into our program. Courses that you transfer into our program will transfer in as electives, because Long Beach requires that you complete all of your core courses in residency in the host program, so in our program. So any courses you transfer in will come in as electives. We've already talked about advancement to candidacy, so I think you are familiar with that. You cannot advance a candidacy in your first semester. You also cannot advance a candidacy in your last semester. You cannot advance in the semester in which you are graduating. Another administrative requirement before you graduate is called petitioning or applying to graduate. This is something you do directly on the Enrollment Services website. They have a nice little link on there that you can do directly with Enrollment Services. This is where you tell Enrollment Services when you are planning to graduate, and then you pay them your graduation fee, which is, I don't know what it is now. It used to be $55, but given inflation, I don't know what it is now. But you will pay your petition to graduate fee. You have to petition to graduate if you're graduating in the spring or the summer by October 15th. If you're graduating in the fall or the winter, you have to petition to graduate by March 1st. But again, that's done directly through the Enrollment Services site. And as I mentioned before, your culminating experience is this completion of the 5 case studies in your 697 directed research. You will have to register for 6 units, 2 sections of directed research. Most people will do all 6 units, both sections in one semester, but you do have the option of breaking it up and doing 3 units in one semester and 3 units in a subsequent semester. That's completely up to you. But the reason why we require 6 units instead of 3 is because we found that 99.9% of people don't get the 5 case studies done within 3 units. It's really more reflective of 6 as opposed to 3 units of work. So in directed research, you'll do those 5 case studies, and then you will complete your final skills self-assessment. We've also talked about this before, but when you entered the program, you entered in an option, either the general option, which most people are in, or the urban affairs option, or the public works option. If you're in the urban affairs or the public works option, if you haven't yet, please take a look at the catalog. I've provided those links on the slides so that you can see exactly what courses you can select from in terms of your electives. So for both of these options, you'll only have 4 instead of 5 electives because you have that additional required course, but there's a list of electives that you can choose from in order to satisfy the requirements for the urban affairs and the public works options. Then we also have certificates, and I imagine certificates were discussed in the orientation as well. There are 3 active certificate programs in our department: employee-employer relations, public sector financial management, and public management analysis. The nice thing about these certificates is they are nice add-ons to your MPA degree that do not require you to take additional coursework beyond the 39 units. You can complete a certificate within the 39 unit requirement because the courses that you are using to satisfy the certificate requirements can then also double count as electives to satisfy your 39 unit requirement for the MPA program. I actually have a document that I put together for each of these 3 certificates that really documents to you all the courses you need to take to satisfy these certificates, and I'll put that on our Canvas site. It's kind of a little easier than trying to navigate your way through the catalog, and it's kind of, I like to say one-stop shopping again. I've used that phrase a lot, but it is kind of one-stop shopping, so you can decide if you want to pursue one of those certificates. Now, the one caveat I'll add to it is public sector financial management. That certificate is kind of in the process of being discontinued. And the reason why it's being discontinued is, number one, it had very low student demand. And number 2, the person who designed it, Dr. Moore, retired a couple of years ago. And it's relatively difficult for the department to provide all the classes needed to meet the requirements for that certificate. And that certificate also relies heavily upon the College of Business and taking courses over there. They have become very impacted, and it's become much more difficult to get our students into College of Business courses today than it was 10 years ago. And so there's a good chance that this one is going to be discontinued in the very near future. But I think the other 2 certificates should be around for a while, especially employee-employer relations. That is by far the most popular certificate program that we have as measured by student enrollment. We used to have an urban executive management and a transportation policy certificate. Those are both discontinued, so we are no longer doing those. They have been subsumed under the portfolio of the College of Professional and Continuing Education, otherwise known as CPACE. So you'll do 5 case studies in 697. You will complete your final skills self-assessment. And then the very last thing you will do before you leave the program is you will compile and submit your student learning portfolio. The student learning portfolio, we have really streamlined over the years to try and make it a lot easier to put together, a lot easier for students to actually complete the portfolio than it used to be in the past. The portfolio basically consists of work that you have completed here in the MPA program. It is very much a visual assessment tool, and it's something that you can use to assist you when you go out there to get a job or when you're going out there looking for a promotion. You know, it's one thing to go into an interview and say, yes, I know how to do a budget analysis. And it's a different thing to say, and here is the budget analysis that I completed when I was in my MPA program. And so it really gives you that tangible documentation of the skills that you've acquired in this program. So what is a student learning portfolio? It simply consists of 3 different parts. Part 1 of the portfolio will be the initial skills self-assessment that you are doing here in PPA 500. And then the final skills self-assessment that you will do in 697. So those two documents go into part one of your student learning portfolio. So you actually start building your portfolio here in 500 with that initial skills self-assessment. Then part two of the portfolio consists of what we call the pre and post instructional assignments. Each one of the required courses in the NPA program, with the exception of this course and 697, will have what we call pre and post instructional assignments. So a pre-instructional assignment is an assignment the instructor will assign in the very first part of the class, the first 2 or 3 weeks of the course. And then you'll have a similar assignment, a post-instructional, that you'll be doing at the end of the course, in the last 2 or 3 weeks of the course. That pre and that post-instructional assignment, they should be similar to each other, but what they do is they serve as a nice assessment mechanism. They allow us as faculty members to see how you dealt with issues and concepts when you entered the course as compared to how you deal with them as you are leaving the course. So we can kind of see your acquisition of skills throughout your time in that given required course. And every instructor is required to list their pre and post instructional assignments in their syllabus. If you are in a core course other than 500 and 697 that does not list the pre and post instructional assignment in the syllabus, please reach out to your instructor and have them tell you what the pre and post instructional assignments are. Because for part two of your portfolio, you will need to submit the pre and post instructional assignments from budgeting, HR, org theory, policy, and research methods from those 5 core courses. And I'll give you an idea of what these assignments sometimes look like. Back when I used to teach budgeting, again, back in the Stone Ages, my pre-instructional assignment was I would have students go out there and get a copy of a city budget. They would then read that city budget, and then based upon the reading of that budget, answer 8 simple questions about that budget, using only the information they come into the course with. So using only the information they have about budgeting as they enter the budgeting course. So a valid answer could be, I have no idea. I do not know because I have no experience with budgeting. And that's a valid answer because it's simply just an assessment. That at the end of the course, using that same city budget, they would then answer those 8 questions again, using all the information that they have learned throughout their time in the course. And so that's kind of what I did for my public budgeting courses. So in part two, you'll just simply put the pre and post instructional assignments in there for your core courses. You don't have to make any changes, any revisions to it. Just submit them as you submitted them in those courses when you were enrolled. Then in part three, you will put the 5 case studies that you complete in PPA 697. And again, you'll submit them just as you submitted them for grading, no revisions, no changes, just as you submitted them. And those 3 parts then comprise the student learning portfolio. The student learning portfolio is then submitted electronically using OneDrive. And every student, every member of the academic community here at Long Beach has a OneDrive account. So when you become a student, become a faculty member, you get automatically assigned a OneDrive. When you go into your single sign-on, sso.csulb.edu, when you go in there, you will have a series of what they call chiclets, little icons. One of those chiclets, one of those icons will say OneDrive. You click on OneDrive, and then through OneDrive, you can create folders, create part 1, part 2, and part 3, so those 3 folders, populate them with the assignments that are supposed to go into each of those folders, and then share those folders with your 697 instructor. When your 697 instructor receives your portfolio, they will not grade anything. They will not do any substantive grading. They will just make sure that everything is in there. They will then approve your portfolio, and then your portfolio requirement has then been met. So when your 697 advisor, instructor approves your portfolio, they will then tell the PPA office. The PPA office will then clear it with enrollment services. And then once your portfolio requirement is cleared, if you look at your unofficial transcript, at the bottom of your transcript, you'll see a notation that says graduate project completed. When you see graduate project completed, that means that your student learning portfolio has been approved and that requirement has been checked off of your graduation list. You don't need any approval forms for the assignments that you are submitting in your portfolio. So you don't have to worry about getting some forms signed or anything anymore. Those days are over. You just put the files into those folders electronically in OneDrive and share with your 697 instructor. The deadline for completing your portfolios, if you're graduating in the fall, December 1st. If you're graduating in the spring, May 1st. And then that's the final requirement before you graduate from the MPA program. So I know it seems like it's a long way away. You're just getting started now, but it will go by very, very quickly. If you're 2-3 years, so 2-3 years will go by real fast. But that's what you'll do in order to graduate from the program. And then finally, in terms of rehashing some of that information from the orientation, some of the policies that I think are important for you to be aware of as you enter the MPA program. Remember, you have to advance a candidacy at least one semester before the semester in which you are graduating. It is always good advice to advance a candidacy early in your academic career. If you're eligible to advance in spring 2025, I would recommend advancing in spring 2025. University has a 7-year rule. So from the time you matriculate into the university, into your program, you must complete all your requirements before the expiration of that 7-year period. If you don't get the MPA degree done within 7 years, then you will have to reapply for admission and come back in the program to finish the requirements. Any courses that are less than 10 years old get automatically revalidated. So if you come back into the program, you have a course that's less than 10 years old, it will be revalidated and you won't have to retake that course. Any courses that are older than 10 years, those courses will then need to be retaken. So just try and get your degree done within that 7-year window. You also have to maintain continuous enrollment in every fall and every spring semester. You don't have to enroll in the summers. You don't have to enroll in the winters. Enrollment in those terms optional, but you do have to enroll in at least something every fall and every spring. If you don't enroll in fall and spring semesters, the university considers that to be a break in enrollment. And if you break enrollment, then you'll have to reapply to the university as well as the MPA program. If there's a semester, a fall or spring semester where you cannot take courses, be sure to complete the educational leave form. And the educational leave form is provided for you on the Enrollment Services website. You can go directly onto Enrollment Services, complete the form. You don't have to have departmental approval for it anymore, and you can just file that education leave. That stops the clock from ticking, and then you will not end up with a break in enrollment. You'll want to keep your cumulative GPA at 3.0 or above. That's what's considered to be good academic standing at the graduate level. If your GPA falls below 3.0, then you'll be placed on academic probation. 2 semesters below 3.0 could then make you in jeopardy for what's called academic disqualification. Now, the university has been trying really hard since COVID not to academically disqualify students, but it's best just to keep your GPA above 3.0. That's your cumulative GPA. Now, if you do get a C in one of your MPA courses, that's fine. C's count. You just have to make sure you balance that C with an A in another MPA course to keep that GPA at least at 3.0. There is a grade appeals process. We won't go through that here because it very, very rarely happens. But if for some reason you feel that the grade you were given by an instructor was arbitrary, capricious, or prejudicial, then you'll want to reach out to our department chair, Dr. Butts, and he can then walk you through the grade appeals process. I served on the grade appeals committee for the past probably 20 years, and I think we've had one grade appeal in the last decade, so it just really does not happen very often. As I've mentioned many times, make sure all your core courses are completed before you will be allowed to enroll in 697. So that's the MPA program at a glance. Again, just to kind of reiterate some of these important topics that you probably got at the orientation. But I don't know at the orientation whether or not they discussed with you the mission and the values of the program. So I want to take just maybe about 5 minutes and then I'll let you go for the evening and just talk a little about what the mission of the MPA program is, and then what types of things we value as an MPA program. So let me try and get this a little bit bigger for you. There we go. Okay, hopefully you are seeing mission and values for the MPA program. As part of the accreditation process, we always have to revisit our mission and have to reconstitute our mission. So the mission of the Masters of Public Administration program at the Graduate Center for Public Policy Administration is to graduate a diverse, ethically and equity-minded student population with the professional competencies and analytical tools necessary for leadership, policy, and management roles in public service, nonprofit, and community-based organizations. Through the promotion of excellence in professional public service, research, and education, graduates will advance the public good and make a positive impact at all levels of governance and management. So some of the things to highlight here is that we really do highlight graduating and educating a diverse, ethically, and equity-minded student population. That's in addition to our new mission statement. And we've also really emphasized the idea of public, nonprofit, and community-based organizations, recognizing that many of our students do not work in government, but rather work in the nonprofit sector and work for a lot of these community-based types of organizations. The mission is important. You're probably wondering, why are we spending time talking about the mission in our first class session? We do it because NASPA accreditation requires that everything that a program does is mission driven. So everything we do, from how we recruit students, how we admit students, our curriculum, how we assess student learning outcomes, how we hire faculty, how we promote faculty, everything we do as a program needs to be linked back to the mission of the program. And so everything we do is mission driven. That's why it's important on your first class in the program that you understand what the mission of the MPA program is. This mission is predicated upon what we call our public service values. And NASPA accreditation requires that every program articulate its public service values. We have 7 public service values that we emphasize in our program. Enhancing diversity in our faculty and student population. We are very fortunate to have one of the most diverse student populations of any MPA program in the entire country. We have been working very hard at diversifying our faculty as well. When I was chair, that was the #1 requirement for hiring faculty, is to have a diverse pool of applicants. We did diversity hiring when I was chair. We've done diversity hiring, well, twice when I was chair. Dr. Butts is committed to diversity hiring again, so we're working very hard at that value. Embracing diversity in our teaching, promoting the public interest, because we are a public service program after all, so we need to promote the public interest. To advance and to encourage ethical behavior. NASPA allows programs to deal with ethics in 2 different ways. One way is programs can have a standalone ethics course as a required course, or courses can sprinkle the coverage of ethics throughout their entire curriculum. We have chosen the latter. So you'll get a lot of ethics and accountability here in 500. You'll get ethics discussions in all of your core courses, as well as in most of your elective courses. Promoting integrity. Obviously, we are managing public funds. We are managing public officials. So therefore, we have to promote integrity. An emphasis on social justice and social equity. This is very much in alignment with what we refer to as the new public administration. The primary value of the new movement of public administration is an emphasis on social justice and social equity. This is one of the primary goals of Dr. Butts in his term in chair, has been to create workshops and colloquia focusing on social justice and social equity. And so keep an eye on your emails, because whenever those workshops and those colloquia are scheduled, you will get an email invitation for them. I highly recommend you take advantage of those opportunities, because Dr. Butts has really done a good job of doing all the hard work of really creating these types of workshops. And then obviously professional competence. At the very heart of NASPA is that when you graduate as a student from a NASPA accredited program, you will be equipped with certain competencies that will allow you to be more effective leaders and managers in the public and nonprofit sectors. So as a program, we have adopted the 5 NASPA universal required competencies. Those competencies you see reflected on the screen: to lead and manage in the public interest, to participate in and contribute to the policy process, to analyze, synthesize, think critically, solve problems, and make evidence-informed decisions in a complex and dynamic environment, to articulate, apply, and advance a public service perspective, and to communicate and interact productively and in culturally responsive ways with a diverse and changing workforce and society at large. So in essence, what we do in our program is these are the 5 competencies that you will acquire throughout our core curriculum. So we have kind of crosswalked these competencies across our core curriculum. Not every core course will focus on all 5 of these competencies. Some will focus on competency 1, some will focus on competency 3, and so on and so on. In this course, we focus on competency number 1, to lead and manage in the public interest, and number 4, to articulate, apply, and advance a public service perspective. So those are the 2 competencies that you will acquire through your time here in PPA 500. But once you have finished your studies in the MPA program, you have acquired all 5 of those NASPA universal required competencies. So if NASPA ever comes knocking and asks you in a focus group, have you ever been told about the universal competencies? You can say, yes, in my very first course in the program on our first day, we talked about those 5 universal competencies and the mission of the MPA program. But it is important for you to understand the mission and these competencies as you begin the MPA program. And then as you take subsequent courses, you will see how different courses will contribute to different competencies. And that is pretty much it that we usually do in our first night together here in PPA 500. Again, I really do apologize. I talked a lot tonight. I know we didn't take a break tonight, which is unusual for us, but I really want to get through all this information and then give you a little bit of time back this evening since it's our first night together. But before we break for the evening, let me ask you again, do you have any questions at all about the course, the syllabus, the MPA program, anything?
I have a question. So PPA 518, it wasn't offered this semester. Does that mean that they're offering it next semester?
Yes, I would say I would be 99% sure it'll be offered next semester. Dr. Butts will know for sure because he puts the schedules together now. But if it wasn't offered in the fall, I'm sure it will be offered in the spring because so many students need that as a prerequisite to then get into 555. So I'm sure it will be, but double check with Dr. Butts.
Okay. Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, one of the joys of not being chair anymore is I don't have to put the schedule together for the stateside program. I only have to put one schedule together, and that's for the DL program, which is oftentimes a lot quicker and a lot easier because it's a cohort program, it's a lockstep program, so we have a limited number of courses, and they tend to recur year after year. So a lot less moving parts for me today than back when I was chair and putting together the schedule for the stateside program. Well, as you digest all this information, if you do have questions, always feel free to send me an email. I'm more than happy to respond to any questions that you have. Also, when we get together next week, we're going to talk about American government in the first half of class and then go through the Constitution in the second part of class. I'll also reserve some time next week. So after you've had a chance to think about all the stuff we've covered tonight, we'll have a chance to entertain any questions you may have that have come up between now and then. And it's always good, to in 500, when those questions come up, if you have the question, chances are at least half of the class also has the same question. So it's good that we were able to have a chance to air out those questions. But next week will be American government, and that's it for tonight. So I'll have this recording up on our Canvas site by tomorrow morning, and it will be captioned. And so you'll be able to watch this at your leisure. And then we'll be back at it again next Wednesday at 4 o'clock talking American government. So thanks, everyone. Nice virtually meeting you. Have a great week, and I will talk to you next Wednesday. So thanks.
Thanks,
Thank
Dr.
you.
Bye.
Thank you.
you.
Thank you, Dr. Paul.
Thank you.